Thank you, Mark, and greetings to everyone. Shabbat Shalom, greetings. I know there are a lot of dear friends and people here in this big bubble of all these little boxes. So greetings to those of you I know and those I don't. So I guess I went right. The first thing I did was go to step 11. Those of you that know the 12 steps may know that step 11, which is not right at the beginning, but it comes 11 of 12, and it says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. So that's kind of the linkage, prayer, meditation, recovery, step 11, but it permeates every single step. Let me just read you one little paragraph from step 11. It's very moving. There is a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they are logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. These three things: self-examination, self-awareness, meditation, and prayer. Now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom. And we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in that realm will be secure for so long as we try, however falteringly, to find and do the will of our own creator. So that's pretty big. What does it mean to do the will of our creator? What does it mean to work with the mind? All of this. So one Jewish rubric I like is the contrast between mochin de katnut and mochin de gadlut. Small mind. And as human beings, we are both narrow minds, small-minded about survival, having what we need, getting it right, and spacious mind also about opening the door into our deepest interconnection with life, to presence and contentment. Being, so that's really it, and the divine. And spacious mind is opening the door to wisdom, discernment, direction in that sense. Deepening, seeing clearly, being less attached, being less controlled by our fears, reactivity, our habit energy, and more open to being and discerning the way that is wholesome. Freedom, it's the journey through out of Egypt in a sense. Egypt is addiction opposed from the outside. I wanted to share with you just a tiny bit from a book that I really like a lot on Jewish recovery. It's by Rabbi Rami Shapiro, called Surrendered the Sacred Art. And he talks about narrow mind is the me trapped in endless having, in endless consumption, and an endless quest for power and control that often falls into addictive behaviors that feed the drama of me and narrow mind. Spacious mind has no quest, seeks no power, and realizes the illusory nature of control. Narrow mind is a wave insisting it is the entirety of the ocean. Spacious mind is the ocean knowing it is greater than the sum of its waves. So recovery, I think, is we're all both narrow mind. We're all both mochin de katnut in moments, and we all have the potential for mochin de gadlut. We all are, and it moves back and forth. There's no question about it. But we do live in a world often conditioned and encouraging separation and small-mindedness, grasping and exploitation of the earth, endless enemy narratives, other separated. So the spiritual life, the life of recovery, the life of getting out of Egypt is really a life of interconnection and finding a connection to something greater than ourselves. And just to say, this Parsha, Shlach Lecha, The leaders of the 12 tribes are sent to scout the land, and only 2 return, ready to fulfill the promise to be connected to God, to something greater, and to enter the land. The other 10 leaders, out of fear, confusion, lack of faith, have these delusions about the inhabitants and their enemies, super giants, bent on destroying them. In other words, these 10 were not able to see clearly. They were trapped in their own fears. They were enslaved to their own projections. And they showed God and Moses that this generation wasn't ready to enter the land. They were free, but not fully in recovery. There's no such thing as being recovered. It's recovering. It's like I like to say, in AA, we used to say progress, not perfection. I like to say practice, not perfection. Practice, not perfection. So I'm going to invite you to sit here and invite spacious mind in this time together. Invite freedom, spacious mind, and invite your small mind to relax and release. Release, unclench, unwind, and dedicate every thought to union. So I'm going to read a little piece based on the Ashrei, the prayer that we say from the Psalms that we say in our morning and afternoon services. Ashrei yoshvei v'techa. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. We learn how to sit when we meditate. We learn how to sit and welcome what is arising in this moment, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, desired or not, familiar or not. We sit with a soft, attentive openness to whatever is here because we recognize that it is all part of the great dwelling place. In meditation, we cultivate attention to what is present in the present. We see the constancy of one thing alone, change. We are dwelling in a safe place. That place is awareness, loving awareness. Awareness is clear and whole and infinite. It is like a clear pond or a gleaming mirror. It reflects whatever is present, but is not consumed, spent, or sullied in any way. A sense of blessing, wholeness, joy, and well-being are the portion of one who is able to truly sit with such a view. So let's sit together. May we all be able to touch that contentment that arises from our ability to be in this present moment as dwelling in the divine's home. May we touch that mochin de gadlut, that vast expanse of mind that is our true nature. And may that wisdom and clarity lead us to the promised land of our lives, of our communities, of our people, of our earth.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Friends, we always seal our practice each day by recognizing those of us who are in mourning or in observing a yard site, and for us as a community to provide a community of support, a structure of support to hold each other in recognition of being part of this collective ocean, not just a series of separate waves. So we invite those of you who are in mourning, or if you're observing a yard site, if you'd like to share the name or names of those you're holding in your heart today in the chat box, you're welcome to do so now or after Kaddish. And I invite you to join me in rising in body or in spirit for Kaddish. Yitgadal, Vikadash Shemei Rabba, Yama Divra Hirute, Yamich Malchute, Chayechon, Yomechon, Chaye B'chol Beit Yisrael, Ha'agala, Bizman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Olam Olamei Almaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitpa'al, Yikamal, Yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalel, Yitalosh, Yitkudsha, B'Yichud, Ne'ela Minkol Birchotecha B'Shvurata, Tush B'Chavtecha B'Nechama, Amen Ba'ama, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shamayim, Ruchim Aleinu V'Al Kol Yisrael, Amen. Shalom V'Roma, Shalom. Inu, Yisrael, V'Shtei Tevel.
Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you so much, friends, for joining us today. Thanks to Rabbi Sheila Peltz Weinberg for leading us. Looking forward in a moment to conversation and some questions for Sheila. So you're welcome to stay on as always. I want to thank Marla Kaufman, Executive Director of the Jewish Addiction Awareness Network, for co-sponsoring today. And I want to thank Fran Zamor for sponsoring our practice today in loving memory of Joe, Zichrono Livracha. And we look forward to continuing with everyone next week. If you would like to join us, we have a full week of practice beginning on Monday. And as always, thanks to Adi Stein for holding our tech space with grace and skill. For those who are leaving now, I want to wish you Shabbat Shalom. May it be a restorative, sweet Shabbat for you. We hope to see you back on Monday. And for those who are staying on, if you have a question you'd like to put to Sheila, or a reflection on your experience or about the teaching today, or about the intersection between recovery principles and Jewish mindfulness meditation principles, please put in the chat box and we'll hopefully try to get to that. If you have a question, please try to preface it with a question in all caps. Putting in the chat box the words to step 11 that Sheila started with. And Sheila, I'm gonna, let's do this. Hi. So I put the words to step 11 in, sought through prayer and meditation improve our conscious contact with God as we understood God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. We're not so much getting to the second part, but the first part. here's the thing. Conscious contact, right? We're trying to improve our conscious contact. For me, I have this sense that, well, the contact's always there. The conscious part is up to me, right? And which goes to what you raised about the small mind and the large mind, the mochin de katnut and the mochin de gadlut, spacious mind and constricted mind. And I would love to ask you a question about that, because of course we'd love to have mochin de gadlut, expansive, spacious mind, conscious contact. But speaking for myself, I spend 98.9% of my time in mochin de katnut, small-mindedness, I would say, with occasional moments. I have my moments of conscious contact. So the question, Sheila, is having to do with, and I think this really goes to the heart of recovery. If we spend so much time in the small mind, how can we use that? How can we work with that? Instead of trying to escape from small mind, how do we use small mind as a springboard to get to or to connect with the larger mind? Does that make sense as a question? I guess I'm thinking about, it could be like, if I think about it as a ladder, I want to get up to the expansive mind, but I'm down here. But if I think of it as yin and yang, that the two are in relation with each other, then maybe it's a little bit different. I don't know. How do you think about that? How do you work with, when you catch yourself, just like experientially, when you find yourself in small mind, how do you apply this?
You see, if you catch yourself in small mind, then there's already big mind is already there.
Right.
Then you're home free. As long as you're catching yourself means loving awareness. It doesn't mean, oh shit, sorry. There we go.
It's all right. It's not a family program.
Okay, there we go. Small mind again. What's the matter with me? What's the matter with me? That's why, to me, the most important words are loving awareness. And once we have that, we can remember, as somebody said somewhere, the whole essence of religion, spirituality, recovery is remembering. And how do we remember? We practice, and it's like you hang out with the right people in the right places, and you practice, and you study the inspiring wisdom. So that's it. It's noticing when small mind. Sometimes we need small mind. We have to, it's pulling your hand out of the fire, and you have to have, self and ego and needs ego. But when it's constricted and diluted, and we gradually learn how to see when we're in a delusional moment of small mind. When we're making up a huge story about something that has never happened and is probably not going to happen, but we're doing it to stop ourselves from being frantic about whatever it is. And we can just go back and actually feel the strain, the stress, the constriction. I mean, for me, a lot of it is embodied and somatic in that way, not figured out.
Yeah. Boy, I've got a lot of questions.
Big question, big question, though.
It's a big question. I got a lot of sub questions. I'm thinking about the moments. First of all, we're talking about addiction, and I think the overlap here has to do with we can all recognize craving and desire, right? We can all recognize fear and resentment and aversion. And what we're talking about here is, when we're talking about addictions, are behaviors where we lose control of our lives as a result of the craving or fear. Yeah.
Right.
And what happens if we can actually see that happening, and what do we do? And the loving awareness there, saying like, I am full of resentment, and I'm aware that I'm full of resentment. And the question that feels like the key here, that is a commonality between recovery and mindfulness practice, is remember the love.
Right.
In recovery, it's remember the loving God as you understand God.
Right.
which for many people who go into recovery is like, well, that's a new idea, particularly Jews, I'd say. And in mindfulness, it is right. It's no one knows better than you. In fact, you're teaching a whole prayer module about it right now, about receiving and extending love to yourself. So I'm just thinking about like, when I am worked up, when you are worked up, tied up in knots, it's like, I'm tied up in knots. I am not far. I'm far from the ocean. I am in my wave that thinks it's the ocean. What happens if I can't even then feel so kindly towards myself?
You know, that's why we need help. That's what we have. We have communities. We have, meetings. We have sponsors. We have teachers. We have Torah. We have Minyan. Which doesn't always work for everybody exactly, because it's so much. It has to be, you have to be at the right place and the right time with the right people. But it's Sangha, whatever you want to call it. We need to ask for help, and that's a huge piece in recovery. And I think it's an important piece in spirituality too. I'm very involved in spiritual direction. It's not like anybody can really help us. I mean, no one can get you sober, but the support and the guidance, if you're able and willing, which, is all questionable, if you're able and willing to receive it, is what happens and what unfolds for us. Then sobriety can unfold, or, a deeper, less delusion can unfold. The 10 leaders of the tribes were not really into listening to Moshe or Joshua or Caleb. They had leaders who saw clearly. They weren't able to listen. Guess what? You're not getting sober, and you're not going to the land.
Yeah, that's straight talk there. There's a great question here. I want to give a shout out also to Rabbi Ilan Glazer, who has a wonderful, who developed and hosts a wonderful Facebook group called Our Jewish Recovery. Ilan's on, I see Ilan is here and is posing a question here. I want to share that with Sheila, but also just give a shout out to that as part of another wonderful resource for those in recovery or considering recovery. And Ilan's question is, sometimes I think we spend too much time berating ourselves for not being in higher consciousness. Is it me, or does the yearning to be in higher consciousness or complete recovery and messianic era, being in an idyllic state, I guess, take away from our ability to be here now? And how do we know anyway when we're in a higher consciousness?
Absolutely. I like the word aspiration. We have the aspiration to get healthier. We have the aspiration to get sober and work the steps. I mean, the program is so great because it does give you the steps, and it gives you the awareness and the recognition. And it also gives you the idea that this is not something we finish. It's not something that we can actually finish. It's just like our lives. The spiritual growth that we have in our lives, if we're fortunate to find that, will not end. Certainly not before death. It may not even end after death. Who knows about that? But it's certainly not there's always something to work on. Absolutely. Always something to work on.
Yeah. I think the spirituality. Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead, Sheila.
No, so, it's so important not to have, it's perfectionism. It goes back to perfectionism, which is very, very rampant in certain areas.
Yes, it certainly is.
Because, I'm going to get it all right. It's just like we got to give ourselves a break a little bit.
Yeah. I was going to just interject that I think that's one of the beauties of the spirituality of recovery programs is the embracing of brokenness and imperfection as a path to spirituality. There's a wonderful book on that, The Spirituality of Imperfection. And I guess that's what I was getting at with my original question about, small-mindedness. Is that like, I don't want to be resentful. I'm not a resentful person. I'm not a, go ahead.
From a mindfulness point of view, and we work this all the time, when I notice something like a negative or a painful or an unpleasant arising in my personality or my body, and I start to judge it and berate myself, the negativity joins the negativity, increases. I mean, it's exactly what you said before about love. It makes it worse. It makes it worse. It's constriction over constriction. But we're wired to push away the unpleasant. That's the mindfulness. We're wired to flee from it or push it away. So it really takes a rewiring of the mind. And I think spirituality is a rewiring of our human existence in a certain way, as is recovery. So it's.
Yeah. I have a question. I just want to see if there's anything. Yeah. So let me ask you the question, Sheila. Just we could go. It would be wonderful to have an hour to have this conversation and not try to squeeze it in. Maybe, hopefully, to be continued one day. But you tell me maybe you can just tell a little bit of the story about coming to recovery. Maybe before, or did it lead into your coming into the world of mindfulness practice?
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone just asked me that on something else. I was in rabbinical school. I was not sober. I made it through rabbinical school, a single parent. I had a job. I was like, a very high functioning drunk. And I met somebody at one point who said, I was in Israel, studying in Israel, and I met someone who was into meditation. It was very interesting. I said, I'm going to come visit you. I was single parent. I said, I'm going to come visit you and we're going to go on a meditation retreat. And I had in my mind, I'm going to sit on a meditation retreat for 10 days, and not going to be any alcohol, and I'm going to get sober. So on the way to the meditation, there was a guy I was interested in. He invited me to anyway. I never got on that meditation retreat. I spent the time with the guy wherever. It was kind of it was part of my bottom. It was part of my bottom. Although I didn't get sober till I was a year out of rabbinical school. That was right the summer after I graduated. And then it was about 3.5 years later that I went on my first meditation retreat. Because it was 87, I got sober. I moved to Amherst in 89. By 90, something like that. 3.5 years that I went on a meditation retreat, and not to get sober. I was sober, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is incredible. They're talking about the same things that are being talked about in AA. It's amazing. I mean, I also saw the Jewish stuff at the same time. It was like, these were like three things going simultaneously: the mindfulness, the Jewish, and the recovery. I was like cross-translating it. Busy mind. So anyway, that was really how it happened for me.
All right, we're at time, but that's thanks for sharing that, and thanks for sharing everything, Sheila. Really. Those of you who are on may or may not be aware of the extent to which, really, Sheila, you are the mother of a lot of this.
Grandma.
I was going to say that too. You are also the bubby, the softa also of this too. We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. Many of us would not be here. This would not be happening were it not for you. I think people, it gives me great pleasure to credit that. I think it's important to note that. And just want to thank you for everything. I think I put in, but let me put it back in. Sheila, I had typed step 11 there. Let me get it. I think it's Sheila Weinberg. Is it SheilaPeltzWeinberg.com?
SheilaPeltzWeinberg.com.
SheilaPeltzWeinberg.com. Sheila has some wonderful books that many of you know and love already, many of which relate directly to this. As I mentioned, Sheila is teaching currently a prayer project month-long intensive on receiving and extending love as a prayer practice. Talk about conscious, through prayer and meditation, cultivating conscious contact with God as we understand God. So that's already a done deal for this round. It'll be back next year if you missed this round, just to let you know. So let's leave it there and wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Fran. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Adi. And thank you, all of you who are here. And may it bring us all restfully and peacefully into an expansive, spacious mind for this Shabbat, where we can meet those inner scouts and hear those voices and say, yeah, okay, we're going to keep moving through the land together. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for your attention.